There are no fire exits planned this evening. Fire exits in the usual place behind me and straight forward. If I could ask you to turn your mobile phones off, please, be much appreciated. Do we have any apologies for absence? I have Councillor Paul Clark. No, that's the lot. Thank you. Any declarations of members' interests? No, there's no declarations. Minutes from the last meeting to approve the correct record of the meeting held. I spoke to Community Services. No one has given us 24 hours notice that they have any comments on the minutes. Any members present have any comments on the minutes? Any cabinet members? Any other members? No, thank you. Announcements. I do have one announcement. It's with great sadness that I have to inform you that a long-serving council officer, Chris O'Leary, passed away this week after a month-long battle with COVID. Chris started work for HDC in 1990, so has over 30 years service. He was well known and well loved and won Employee of the Year in 2019. Chris was well known and well liked by councillors. Chris was the IT guy that fixed all our council iPads, emails, and set most of us up when we first joined the council. Chris had the patience for Saintwood councillors and will be missed. Our heartfelt sympathy goes out to his wife Caroline, his mum Anne, and his children Anne and James. And obviously, as councillors, our support also goes out to the council staff, officers and colleagues, and we do not underestimate the effect this has on team morale and atmosphere in the office this week. Thank you. Public questions. We have received. Yes, Councillor Circus.
Thank you very much, Deputy Leader. I don't think we should let this, I'll close that up in case it rings. I don't think we should let this opportunity go without recording our thanks to Paul as our leader. I feel a particular responsibility in respect of Paul's leadership because I played a major part in persuading him to stand for leader of this council, something that his wife has never forgiven me for. Oh dear. But he took up the challenge and at a very difficult time. And I think the thing about Paul, and I hope he wouldn't take this amiss, the thing about Paul, he was not what you might call a walking firework display, but he was a quietly honest, dedicated leader of this council who was totally committed to the interests of the council and quietly working away to try and address the very difficult issues that face us. He was, in a very real sense, I think, an example of all those members of really all parts of the council who, without any regard for personal ambition, I wasn't interested in personal ambition. That was obvious to me when I persuaded him to stand, whose only interest is the public welfare and the good of the people of Horsham and Horsham district. I'm very sorry that he has stood down. I think we all know why he has stood down, but I think we should not let this opportunity go, Deputy Leader, without recording our thanks to him for his service. And I think, if I may express a hope, I think we should express the hope that he will feel able to play. He's too able an individual not to be, to have a continuing usefulness to the council. And I hope that a role will be found for him as we move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Circus. Any other further cabinet member announcements? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and keep it brief because there's quite a lot of activity going around the place with regards to the local economy and the good work that the economic development team are doing. But I'd like to just bring everybody up to speed and have it on record, some of the achievements and the efforts that are going on as we fight hard to recover from this pandemic. I think the first and most important announcement would be the success of the pop-up shop in Horsham, which I'm sure many of you have seen. What a fantastic shop that is, and what a great idea. In fact, such a fabulous idea that it piqued the interest of the BBC, and the one show in particular, which, as I understand it, has a viewing ratings of around about 7 million, nationally. So that's a significant number of people. They contacted us because they were interested in a few things. One thing they were interested in was how Horsham District Council's innovative and excellent officers had managed to create the idea of reimagining the high street. So we've all seen pop-up shops. It's very common, pop up this, pop up that. They have them at my child's school, for example. But this is pop-up with a difference. This is reimagining the high street. And this enables local entrepreneurs, people with an idea, people with a vision. Perhaps it's somebody with an eco-scented candle brand, or somebody else that wants to grow some plants, and they couldn't possibly afford a retail startup business, the expense and overhead that comes with that. And the pop-up shop enabled these people to rent a small space, whether it's a shelf or a large area within the floor, and present their wares to the public. And I was very pleased to join the opening along with our chairman, David Skip, to be able to see how successful that first day was, and people were coming off the high street just to have a look around. So I did want to put that on record and just thank the economic development team for their outstanding work on the pop-up Horsham project. Just wanted to bring you up to speed with a couple of grants. These are the government recovery grants, such as the ARG fund. This is the circa £2 million that we've been allocating to businesses and across the district to try and recover from the COVID pandemic. Some recent initiatives that have come to fruition will be the ice rink that you'll all see over the Christmas holidays as we approach Christmas. That's in the rec room space. As you'll know, we own the rec room, and this will be in the space left by the removal of the bowling alley. So that's something that we can all enjoy over Christmas. We've also got Major Mind Games. This is a business that have established an escape room above Vision Express. So that's something different for the town, and that will bring, I don't know if anybody wants to try that. Not my cup of tea, but I'm sure that will be very, very successful. Shopfront grants, 28 applications, of which 23 were successful from across the whole district. And then there's what we call the LEAP applications. These are the micro grants, up to, I think it's a couple of £1,000 for small startup businesses to help them get a foot on the ladder. We've had 17 applications in since I last updated you at council, at cabinet, and 13 of those have been approved. We also have the Welcome Back Fund. This again is another fund to help people recover and to get people back into the high street and then around our district. The Horsham District Mystery Trails, we've had consultants appointed to create a set of outdoor trail games, and they'll run in the town centres across the district. Instagrammable spaces, I'm glad I said that right, Instagrammable. Consultants there have been appointed to create and deliver a programme of training and bespoke consultancy to independent high street businesses across the 7 towns in the district. And that will enable a high level of proficiency and increase the use of Instagram, and specifically creating Instagram attractive displays as a marketing tool. Regarding employment, which is a challenge for us, as you know, even though we have low unemployment rates, obviously COVID and the end of the furlough scheme is a risk to our employment rates across the district. We've had the apprenticeship fair on February the 12th, 2022 to help in that regard. In terms of the high street and how we're doing, I'd like to report to Cabinet that September monitoring showed an increase in footfall across all market towns, apart from Henfield. In the UK, retail footfall did actually decrease by 1%, so we've performed very well there. Our vacancy rate across Horsham district, across the town centre rather, 0.2% drop from the previous quarterly review, and just 6.1% overall for the 5 rural market towns. And that represents a 2% drop on the previous quarterly review. And finally, I'd like to sum up with some research that's been done by a small business insurance provider called Superscript, which really does put our performance into perspective. Superscript have ranked Horsham as 7th in the top 10 towns for new businesses. And that uses data released by the Office for National Statistics. So we all know it could be relied upon, don't we? Superscript calculated that between 2020 and 2021, the number of small businesses in Horsham grew by 270. That's 4%. The findings showed that the most entrepreneurial streets in Horsham were the Carfax, East Street, West Street and Peary's Place. Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any other further cabinet member updates? No. We have no questions on notice, so we move over to the formal business of tonight's agenda. Item 6, page 17, to consider reports from the cabinet member of finance and assets on our medium-term financial strategy.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. The medium-term financial strategy. This report updates the Council's financial position under the ongoing impact of COVID-19 in 2021-22 and how the medium-term financing planning scenarios and assumptions have changed since the budget was set in February 21 and since the update in September 21. The government spending review on the 27th of October gave us little clarity on their approach to funding local government. There are plenty of warm words and an encouraging indication that the year 2022-23 won't be a difficult budget for us, but little information on which to project the later years in our strategy. Fair funding review and changes to business rates, badly needed by the upper tier and poorer authorities, have been deferred again. This is actually good news for Horsham, albeit not local government as a whole. Even with pressures from general and salary inflation, my current expectation is that we should be able to set a budget with a modest surplus next year, that's 22-23. In later years of strategy, as funding falls away faster than income returns and the cost of items such as food waste collection come in, I remain concerned that the council will not be able to continue operating all the services it does today. I draw your attention to the paragraphs in the report which reminds us of the risks we face, including the fact that full costs of carbon reduction are not yet included in the financial planning. This alone could considerably worsen the council's financial position in the medium and long term. I hope the December settlement...
Councillor Andy, could you just move the mic a bit closer, please? You're a tiny bit quiet. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. I hope the December settlement will be a 3-year settlement, which will help us plan more accurately over the medium term by the time I report to you in January. One of the recommendations of this report is to recommend to council an increase in the charges of garden waste from £42 to £44. We set most of our fees and charges with the budget in February. However, the timescales for billing our garden waste users mean we need to make a decision now rather than later. This report also recommends council add in 4 new revenue budgets to enable us to accept grants, grant funding on specific services. Final recommendation asks council to approve joining the West Sussex Business Rates Pool in 2022-23, providing there is a safety net in place to prevent us being worse off than not joining. You may recall that 2 years ago we were in the pool, and this allowed West Sussex as a whole to benefit from retaining locally generated business rates. But we disbanded the pool in the current year due to the uncertainties of the impact that COVID-19 would have on business rates. The full recommendations are on page 8 of your papers.
Thank you, Councillor Landu. Any questions from any cabinet members? Councillor Serkis.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. These are probably questions for the officers, but I wonder whether perhaps Adam can give us an update on 3 issues that occur to me. Obviously, the report makes the perfectly valid point that the cost of food waste is going to be quite significant, and it's an obligatory development. The question there is, do we have any up-to-date information as to whether we will get government grants that will alleviate in whole or in part the costs of introducing food waste? A similar question, Leader, is in relation to 3.14 about garden waste, because we know that the government were very keen on at one stage in having obliging local authorities to collect green waste free of charge, which presumably they would cover with some sort of grant, because that's what Eric Pickles did when he was Secretary of State, in order to encourage local authorities to keep weekly collections of residual waste. So there is a precedent for government grants to cover expenditure in waste collection. So perhaps it's probably Adam can give me an answer on that. And since I'm asking him these questions, he might as well answer a final question that occurs to me, which is the issue of commingling. Because there will be a significant increase in costs for the authority and for indeed individual residents if commingling of recyclables is forbidden or heavily restricted when the government moves forward on its proposals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sarkis. So 3 questions. The first one, in terms of government grants for food waste, you're right that the costs of introducing food waste will be significant, but at present we do not have any information as to what sort of support. We're very hopeful in terms of that we will get support from the government. It's very likely that there'll be some sort of transitional support, but we do not have any confirmation on those figures at present, nor do we have any confirmation on the timescale. I think that will emerge in the new year. On the second point around garden waste, again, we do not have clarity from the government in terms of whether they're going to remove the ability to charge for garden waste. You are right to say that would have a significant impact on our budget. If they removed the charges altogether, I think that would perhaps cost up to £2 million. But on that one, I'm less hopeful that they will provide any sort of transitional budget. I think that is a policy decision they may well take. And then on the final point, regard commingling, we would have to get some help from our colleagues at West Sussex to examine fully the financial implications of that. It is likely to make it certainly more complex, in my view, for local residents to understand. And equally, I also think that when it comes to that point, the government will perhaps be persuaded by our approach in West Sussex that actually we get a very good recycling rate and we get really good quality of recycling, and therefore allow commingling to continue. Hope that helps.
Thank you. Any other cabinet member questions? Opening to the floor, any other member questions? No, I've no further questions. So the recommendations are in front of you on page 8 for agenda item 6. Can I show a hand from cabinet members as to whether vote for approval? That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7, to consider the report from the member for Assets and Finance again. Back to you, Richard. If you could speak a little louder, please, Richard, with the mic a bit closer, because it was a slight struggle for people at the back room to hear. Thank you.
Right. Revenues and benefits future. In May 2017, the Cabinet agreed the delegation of the Council's Revenues and Benefits Service to a group of Northamptonshire and Cambridgeshire local authorities known as LGSS, following the Council's decision to withdraw from the Consensus Partnership in January 2017. For services, this arrangement has worked well. However, unrelated issues with Northamptonshire County Council led the government to reorganise local government in Northamptonshire, deleting the counties and district. From April 2021, therefore, our new relationship was with West Northamptonshire Council, and the one remaining partner of the original agreement, Milton Keynes Council. West Northamptonshire Council issued notice to Milton Keynes to exit the arrangement and left on November the 5th, 2021. Since that date, our services have been solely provided by Milton Keynes. Our original revenues and benefits agreement expires on the 31st of March 2023. Benchmarking our services tells us that the services are good quality and the service costs less than other West Sussex districts and boroughs pay for their revenues and benefits service. Milton Keynes Council has offered to continue working with us on a permanent basis from 1st of April 2023 with an exit arrangement in which either side can give 18 months notice. This would involve a new partnership arrangement between Horsham and Milton Keynes, slightly different to the previous bought service type agreement, but allowing Horsham to share in the savings generated by a continuous improvement of the service. My research concludes that this offer still provides the best price and quality service and avoids considerable cost of change, move to another supplier or bringing a service in-house. I therefore recommend on page 19 of your papers that the Cabinet approves the new arrangement and delegates the detail of the final agreement to the Director of Corporate Resources in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Finance and Assets and the Monitoring Officer.
Thank you, Councillor Lundy. Any questions from Cabinet members? Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. It's not a question, it's just to say that I would support this. It's clearly a much better arrangement than we had previously. So I have no problem in supporting the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further Cabinet member questions? Any questions from other members present? No, thank you. Okay, so the recommendations on page 19, agenda item 7. Can I have a show of hands from Cabinet members as to whether they approve the recommended motions? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Okay, moving on to agenda item 8, page 29 of our agenda. I hand over to the Cabinet Member for Leisure and Culture.
Excuse me, just get this microphone over so you can hear me. Thank you, Deputy Leader. I would like to present to the Cabinet the report for the procurement of the new Aboriculture contract. The effective management of our extensive tree stock is vitally important and is a statutory service that we have to deliver. The current contract expires at the end of March 22, and so a procurement process has been undertaken to ensure that a new contract is in place from the 1st of April 2022. The scope of the new contract includes routine maintenance, secondly, an emergency response, thirdly, the management of ash dieback disease across the whole of our district, and finally, regular inspections and reporting. I would like to highlight to Cabinet that the tree inspections are currently delivered by in-house council staff. There are, however, increasing pressures in terms of the demand on the team, which has been exacerbated with the ash dieback work. It therefore makes sense that the inspections transfer to the new contract, as the contractor will have a much greater ability to scale up and scale down their operations as and when is needed. I would also like to reassure my colleagues that we are retaining a specialist arboriculture officer in-house, both to manage the contract and to carry out spot checks to ensure quality standards are maintained. The new contract will be in place for 7 years with the ability to extend up to a further 7 years, meaning a possible 14 years in total. The contract period, excuse me, the contract period is also aligned with the recently procured grounds maintenance contract, which we agreed at last Cabinet, should it be of value to combine both contracts together in the future. I'm also pleased to note the new contract ensures that there is a commitment to sustainable practices and a reduction in carbon emissions. As highlighted in the report, there are increased pressures on the budget for arboriculture services, and this is detailed within the exempt appendix number 1. This is mainly due to the expected impact of ash dieback disease, which is a national issue for all landowners, including all local authorities. I am satisfied that the procurement process has been a thorough process and correctly adhered to, and that legal advice and oversight has been present throughout. Therefore, I would like to recommend to Cabinet, as on page 30 of our bundles, firstly, to approve the award of the arboriculture contract to the highest scoring bidder on the terms recommended as detailed in Appendix 1. And secondly, to delegate authority to the Director of Community Services in consultation with the Head of Legal and Democratic Services to finalise terms and conditions and to enter into the contract with the highest scoring bidder. Thank you, Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Knoll. You pronounced that word so much better than me. Arboriculture.
Arboriculture, not without a bit of practice,
Trees.
I can assure you.
Trees. Thank you, Councillor Knoll. Any questions from Cabinet members? Councillor Utah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Newton. Yes, we have at present got 2 members of staff. One is stepping down, but the other one, who is a tree specialist, is going to remain and be constantly inspecting the work that the new contractors will be doing. That's all been agreed, and the member of staff who is stepping down has accepted the terms for leaving.
So can I, sorry to be pedantic, but
No, you're
are you
not.
going to replace, or are we back to having just one person?
We are back to having one, because the new contractors are going to be undertaking their own inspections and reporting back to us.
Somebody else.
Right.
So we are, the amount of work within the contract that we have now agreed is going to be more than the original arboriculture contract, and they will be taking on the extra responsibilities of doing inspections, which we were previously doing ourselves in-house.
Lovely. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other Cabinet member questions? Councillor Circus.
I'd just like to support Tricia's concerns. I remember Will Jones often said to me that he found it difficult to do all the tree work that was necessary within the district. And of course, West Sussex is probably the most wooded county in the country. It's probably it's an open question whether it's Surrey or West Sussex, but it's certainly an extremely wooded county. And the point is the safeguarding of trees. We often, I don't know about other members, but I've often in the old days called Will out because we were concerned that a tree was likely to be felled. Now, with concerns about climate change and the importance of trees, safeguarding our tree stock is even more important. And, you know, I've become very suspicious of the expression highest scoring bidder. And I'm sure the Cabinet member can reassure me that highest scoring does not mean the cheapest. but quality and the needs in terms of our tree stock is right there at the top of the criteria that were looked at in this assessment exercise. Thank you, Deputy Leader.
Can I just reply to that?
Yeah, Councillor Nutt, thank you.
To reassure Councillor Circus? Yes, well, to start off with, the winning contractor was not the cheapest. In fact, they came somewhere midway in the table. There were two cheaper contractors, and we have much confidence in the contractor who has won the contract because they have provided excellent services before to not only to us in other areas, but also to other councils in our area. I'm satisfied that they're going to take the greatest care in looking after our tree stock. I'm sure that they are going to prove to be worthy contractors, and I'm very confident that they will in fact be able to fulfill everything that they tendered for.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Nutt. Any other further cabinet member questions? Members on the floor, any other questions? No. Okay, so we have in front of us recommendations to Cabinet to agenda item 8 to approve the recommendations on page 30. Can I have a show of hands from Cabinet members to approve the recommendations? Thank you, that's unanimous. Moving on to agenda item 9, Community Advice Partnership Agreement. I'll hand over to the Cabinet member for Community and Wellbeing.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. The purpose of this report is to inform the decision-making process concerning whether Horsham District Council enters into a partnership contract, also referred to as inter-agency agreement, with West Sussex County Council and all the other district and borough councils in West Sussex to collectively fund and procure community advice services. The current community advice services contract expires on the 31st of March next year, with the new service proposed to be in place for 7 years. The existing service is funded through our annual strategic grant budget and set within annual budget setting. Citizens Advice are the current provider of the service and supports residents with matters ranging from benefits and consumer rights through to employment, relationship and family matters, to name but a few. The reason for the recommendations are to enable community advice services to continue to be delivered for residents of the Horsham district, therefore protecting the quality of life of those who live in, work in and visit our district. Members of my PDAG all agree that the Citizens Advice Bureau offers an essential services to our community. I'm therefore asking Cabinet to agree the recommendations which are printed on page 41. Would you like me to read them out?
No, I think that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from Cabinet members? Councillor Circus.
I hope the Cabinet member won't mind me asking a question, but it's a question that occurs to me in relation to all of this, because in a previous life I was chairman of Reigate and Red Hill and Hawley Citizens Advice Bureau, so I've had some experience of this. And I just wonder, one of the things that concerned me when I had that role years ago was the increasing time spent by volunteers on what I would call red tape. And the protestations I had from advisors that they'd signed up to the service in order to help people, and they were just spending an increasing amount of time on red tape imposed on them by the national organisation. I just wonder, and I don't know who could, I don't know who can give me an answer on this, whether as public money is being given to the Citizens Advice Bureau, what mechanism we have for evaluating, if there is such an opportunity, to evaluate the quality of the service being provided by CAB. I don't know whether, there's someone can give me some help on
I'm
that,
sure
but-
Adam can answer that.
Thank you, Councillor Phillip. Yeah, I think we can provide reassurance, actually. I think certainly in our district, we have, and in terms of the council officers, we have a very high opinion of the service delivered by Citizen Advice. They have a very able and capable CEO in terms of Emma Cross. She's been with them now, I think, for up to 18 months, maybe slightly longer. But we have a lot of faith in the service that she provides, a lot of faith in terms of the service that the Citizens Advice provide to local people. And to give you a bit more reassurance in terms of your actual question, in terms of how we are able to assess that, we get regular updates from Citizens Advice on their performance. They provide us quarterly updates in terms of setting out how many clients they've helped, the age range of those clients, the sort of work they've helped with them, whether that's debt issues, housing benefit issues, etc. And they provide us with a regular scorecard, and that is monitored by Rob Jarvis and his colleague Nick Jenkins, who are equally very experienced in terms of community services. So I think there's nothing to worry about. We think they're excellent.
Deputy Leader, if I could just come back and anecdotally, I know a number of people who've recently used the Citizens Advice Bureau, even during the pandemic, when their doors were closed and they had to do them online, and they were very, very reassured by the service they were given. That continues online, but also in person. So people now have a choice whether they want to do it in person or virtually. But all the feedback that I've heard, and I know some people who've actually helped volunteer there, they say it's been very well used right through the last 18 months.
Thank you. Any other cabinet member questions? No. Opening to the floor. Any other members? Any questions? Thank you. Okay, so we have a recommendation on page 41, and there's another recommendation over the page, agenda item 9. Recommendations to cabinet on page 41 and 42. Can I have a show of hands as to whether we approve the recommendations? Thank you. For the purpose of the recording, that's unanimous again. Moving on to item number 10, recommendations or referrals from overview and scrutiny. Councillor Bevis.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Cabinet will remember on the 10th of February this year that a report from ONS was adopted by Council, and this proposed setting up of HDC standards for parking space in new developments. At our committee meeting this week, concern was expressed that nothing has happened on this proposal. We fully accepted that there was going to be some sort of delay because of the local plan, but it's been delayed and it's been delayed and it's been delayed, and the committee is getting very frustrated that nothing has happened yet, and we would ask Cabinet to find a way of making it happen. This was a unanimous resolution at Council, supported across the board, and yet nothing happened. So I've been asked to convey our frustration to Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bevis. I can ask the Cabinet member to reply, please.
Thank you, Councillor Bevis. I'll take you back to January. In January, Catherine gave a presentation to Overview and Scrutiny on what could be included in the review of parking standards, what the resource implications were, and that the work would be done as members had instructed. Timescales could not be confirmed, but the 3 months requested was not possible. On February the 10th, when the matter went to Council, members were told that parking standards would be undertaken once a new local plan was in place. Since then, we had the changing timescale of the said local plan, and it's been outside of our control. Changes to the MPPF and water neutrality. Members have been kept informed at each juncture. So Overview and Scrutiny would have had no expectations that working on parking standards would have been taking place before these issues were resolved. Overview and Scrutiny were given a status update in mid-October. Parking standards work is programmed into strategic planning's work stream for the new year. Thank you.
Thank you to Councillor Lambert. Item number 11 is generally just for noting for the forward plan. However, I did pick up an error. I've got item number 2 on the forward plan. Highwood Community Centre is down for today's date, 25th of November. Perhaps I could just refer that to the Director of Community Services to give us an update when that's coming to Cabinet and Council, please.
Yeah, sorry, that is incorrect. Yeah, I think we're going to aim for the Cabinet in January.
Thank you. Okay, to consider any special matters of urgency. Well, before I close this meeting, I'd just like to personally thank all the Cabinet members. You heard earlier in the meeting that our leader did resign, and I personally would like to extend that vote of thanks to our leader, but I'd also like to extend that vote of thanks to this Cabinet for all their hard work, dedication and hours of service they've put in. Invariably, when a new leader is appointed, there is always a slight changing of the guard, and I think it should be noted that I'd like to record a vote of thanks, and Councillor Clark asked me also to pass on his vote of thanks. So with that final note of thanks, I shall close the meeting. Thank you.